Let's call this meeting back to order. We were up to item 12, post-agenda items, and there's a request for a letter of support for the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. There are notes with regard to this. Who's Ariana? If you got background for us? Yeah, please.
Yeah, so at Joint Services early this week, the committee was presented with information about the new Alberta Advantage immigration strategy. It's a program that municipalities can partner together and submit applications under to become what they call a designated community under the program. And once you're designated, you can then pursue attracting, recruiting, and retaining newcomers using this new immigration stream. So Joint Services Committee thought it would be a wise idea in support of attracting labor to the area, whether it's veterinarians or people to work at JBS, and try to get our foot in the door and get going with attracting people. So that's really what we're looking for here. Is there's a draft letter of support there, and once that gets kicked off, Lisa and Mitch over at the city through the Brooks region will be working with local agencies to try to retain and attract newcomers through this program.
Anybody have direction for us with regard to that? Kelly, please.
I would like to make a motion to approve.
All in favor of that, or any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Now there's a number of information items. Payment registers are available for us to see. Tilley Solar Project, is there information that we need to update on that with specifically, Matt, or just for information?
Just for information where they're at in the process with their community engagement.
Okay. Neil, you have...
Is there any other solar projects that you know of that are in the wind?
Not any new ones that haven't been advertised as of yet.
Like, how many are we working with now?
Well, there's Solarcraft, and you're putting me on the spot, so I don't have an exact number. Solarcraft, the one out near Bassano, which I think is Graingate, if I remember right. Don't quote me. And then Tilley. Sandra might even know off the top of her head because she likes to write stories about these things. But those are the three that kind of come to mind.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Lynette, go ahead, please.
I was just curious, with the solar that we've been seeing more and more of the solar stuff, what kind of conversations have been around the fact that they're only going to be viable for so long and then they have to replace, or if we would be ending up looking at them like the orphan well funds where they just try and walk away, and then so is there some legislation, is there some stuff being done as a cleanup for any of these?
That's a good question. Neil, do you?
Yeah, I can answer that. I signed a contract with the solar company. The cleanup is their responsibility. It'll last about 30 years, and then they'll be down to 75% efficiency. So they'll make a call 30 years from now of whether to revamp or what to do with it. But the cleanup is it's their baby. And there's a lot of cleanup, a lot of salvage there that's worth quite a little pile of money. So I didn't find it to be an issue, and I had 2 lawyers look at it. They're totally satisfied that I'm protected, so I don't pay much attention to that end of the project. It seems to be all good.
Do they have to file a bond or anything to?
There's no bond, no. Not like with a well.
Yeah.
The government isn't involved in this.
Yeah. Okay, Kelly.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind you that AUC makes those approvals. We don't at this level.
but when we've had solar here to present, they have indicated that they are responsible for cleanup. Now, I don't know what oil and gas said 30 years ago. They may have heard the same story 30 years ago. But having said that, we know what we're going through with the wells and the oil and gas industry. So hopefully the government has learned something from previous history, right?
You'd hope. Go ahead, Kelly. Holly, I mean.
I think it varies from project to project in terms of what the cleanup conditions are. That's what I have seen. They are concerned that there's going to be so much glass from the panels and that won't have the facilities to recycle all of it because it'll be so much. So they haven't really worked out that piece yet. There's been discussions about it, but I think it's still kind of, as Kelly's saying, kind of a bit of an unknown yet.
And I think the reclamation and recycling is an issue with all of the electric initiatives, and because of batteries and that kind of thing too. It's a big thing. And I guess as with oil and gas activity, probably bankruptcy or company dissolution is probably the threat in terms of cleanup. And I wonder how has any, Neil, from your experience, is that addressed at all?
Well, that's the case in any business venture that you go into. The company that I'm dealing with is called Elemental. It's a private company, a private family from Vancouver that's putting their own money into it. I'm quite comfortable with it.
Yeah.
They've got probably $150 million in the ground out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know how it'll do, but I think it'll be doing just fine.
Okay.
And the question they asked at the DID meeting the other day was, how many acres does oil and gas take out of the district as far as lease sites go? When I was at DID, they took out about 15,000 acres if you added up all the leases. Well, solar's not even come anywhere close to that yet. Like 15,000 is one heck of a big solar farm.
And,
And we're more than willing to let the ground grow to oil and gas. So,
and it's always concentrated.
It's
But when
always
you look at
concentrated.
the oil and gas, though, they talk, when they buy a lease, it's big, but they don't use it,
Yeah,
right? So
Yeah.
that's different there, too.
it's a little different. Oil and gas pays more per acre, but you don't get as many acres.
Okay, any other comments or questions? That's there for information. The minibus monthly report is also there for information. Seeing no questions or comments, we'll move on to the update on the RMA Spring 2022 Convention meetings with ministers. How many? We've got a meeting with the Minister of Agriculture. Is that the only one?
Minister of Agriculture is Wednesday, March 16th, right after convention wraps up, so between 12:30 and 12:50. And then we have a virtual meeting set up with the Minister of Health, March 21st, from 11:30 to 11:50. So I think we'd be looking for clarity on who's attending with the Minister of Agriculture in person. The item on the agenda for that meeting specifically is the veterinarian shortage. I'm sure you can branch out and spitball some other ideas with Minister Horner at the same time.
Yes, and go ahead.
So are those meetings, like, is that going to be like it was when we went for the fall convention, that you'd only want 2 or 3 people to go? Or, like, are these bigger rooms that it wouldn't matter if we're all there? Just...
I'm not sure.
It gets pretty crowded in those rooms usually. So oftentimes they only want a few, and sometimes they don't mind, but it gets pretty crowded, I think.
Neil?
Yeah, I think I texted a couple of you. I think those little 15-minute meet and greets are a total waste of time. Like, by the time you introduce yourself and everybody says their hellos, you get about 10 minutes worth of conversation. I think it'd be more worth our while to maybe bide our time and get an hour or so with the minister, with the whole board. Like these, there's no point, I don't think there's any point in sending more than a couple people to them because it's just, we don't have any time.
Thanks, Neil. Ellen, and then Dan.
A few years ago, Al Kenner, he was the former president of RMA. He stepped down from that position, and then he took a position with Alberta Council, and I believe it is in the form of advocating with the provincial government. And he said at one point, send a few people in that want to speak about whatever item you want to talk about. Keep it short, small, I mean, not too many topics, and leave one page written, summarized, what you really wanted to discuss. And he thought that would be a good way to go.
Dan, you wanted to say something, and I'll add some comments here.
From what I saw with our meeting from Minister McIver, you're right. If there was too many people, then you're going to be all wasted in introductions. But with a few people, it didn't really take up a lot of time. We had plenty of time to say what we wanted. No, we didn't convince McIver of anything that day, but the handful of people he had with him were taking notes. So I think that makes a lot of good sense. You come in, you be clear and concise as to what you want them to do, what you want them to look at, and leave information for them would be huge. I think it's worthwhile, but keep the numbers low for sure.
Yeah, and I would say that, and maybe even in this case, well, the virtual meeting with the Minister of Health may be a little different, but we don't have any issues that are really burning up on us, and we didn't last time either, being a new council, and some of those issues were probably had more history than most of us did with council at that point, so that plays into it. But there's also there is a benefit in having some face time with the minister, even in the case of when you do need something in the future. If they know who you are, it's not a bad thing. Now, you don't want to waste their time either, so that's the balancing act with the Minister of Agriculture. I guess I can think of kind of four things that we've talked about, and none of them will we change in that meeting, but I think just raising the issues and having some time with them is not a bad thing. One of the veterinarian shortages has been mentioned. I think the unpaid oil and gas taxes is a number that affects us, and that also it's just good for awareness. He is the rural development minister as well, to know that that's on our radar screen and it's impacting our bottom line, and even in relation to the government's initiative to review the linear assessment approach. I got to hope some of that came out of a bygone day that has now changed, but I'm not so sure about that. But that's a little different issue. We probably won't talk much about that. But the other two things that we have talked about are interprovincial trade barriers and how they impact local business. And I think we're thinking or looking towards maybe a resolution to that effect in the future, so it doesn't hurt just to raise that as something we're thinking about. And the other one, again, I'd look for council's direction, but the matter of conservation easements, they're a good thing, but I'm hearing more and more questioning the fact that they are in perpetuity. My feeling is, and I know that's the feeling of some others as well, I've talked to a few other council members from other areas about it, and I think there's an interest in maybe moving forward with a resolution to that effect, because the way it is today, one generation today can decide in perpetuity a whole suite of things that can't happen on some land. I have no problem with that for a fixed period of time, but that those never get revisited is, I think as a group that's interested in property values and all of that kind of thing, that's worth looking at. That's a long-winded comment. Holly and then Kelly.
Would we mention the shortage of ag employees? I mean, he would be maybe well aware of that, but should that not be on the list?
And then to add to the oil and gas loss of money, there's also the paid-for education tax that we have already invested to the Alberta Education Program on this tax money. So not only is it unpaid, but it's education tax that their provincial government and our kids are benefiting from, that we are not being paid back for.
Coming out of our coffers.
Coming out of our coffers,
Right.
yes.
Yes. Linears, yeah.
So,
Oh, Dan, sorry.
Sounds like we got a pretty full list there and already, but maybe we can ask someone else for the information about how to attract investors into our area, because that came up at that Palliser Economic Partnership meeting. They've got interesting ideas of how to get value-added opportunities for farmers, but again, it all comes down to an investor. Unless we can get an investor to come in. So I don't know if we ask them for help on how to get investors or ask for resources, or if there's another avenue we can take to get that information.
One of the things that I think is an opportunity around these RMA conventions is the opportunity to talk to other rural municipalities and learn from them. I know Neil and I have observed what's happened in Brazeau County I think that's the one, right? That seems to be getting quite a bit done. And the county of Lethbridge, that area, as we've talked about before, and I think it's partly a matter of observing what's working and learning from others on that. Partly, that's not the whole answer, obviously, but
You're right on that, Arnold. Like the Brazeau County is almost an example to follow. Like I think they'd be a little bit wealthier than we are, aren't they? Same bracket. Anyway, they operated it economic development-wise. They're about as pro as you can get, and yeah, we learned a lot just from spending a little bit of time with them. And it's worthwhile at RMA to make all those connections that we can.
so the question. Kelly, sorry.
and it's just to make the comment that 90% of our investments are likely to come from within the County of Newell. We learned that at that economic strategy workshop that we took. And so our efforts, I believe, should be spent on retention and keeping our present businesses operating healthy. That's my thoughts.
Thank you.
I think they're on the same page as you, because one of their little strategies is once a month they meet with a business in the county, council to the business, just a meet and greet kind of thing. And they say it works really well. But that's retention. That's your local people.
Yes, I did. Something we should probably strategize around. Yeah. So the question is, who's going to attend the meeting with the Minister of Agriculture? Holly? Pardon me? I think you should go for sure. Okay. Sure. I think 3, 4, 5 people. I'm not concerned too much about that. If you want to be part of the meeting, I hate limiting it, but I realize strategically it's probably important. But
I could do that if it's okay with the people I'm traveling with.
okay. Comfortable with that? 4 of us? Is that? Yeah, okay. So Lynette, Adina, Holly, and myself. Okay. The meeting with the Minister of Health, I think one of the things we've talked about earlier is getting a good sense of exactly where the Bassano project is at. Amanda and Adina are on the Newell Foundation, right? Are you getting any information or understanding of exactly where that's at? The Bassano Hospital project, or Kelly, because you're directly involved there, or to some extent? No.
Regarding the Bassano project, I really think that evolves around what Alberta Health Services is going to do, and that's why we're at a standstill.
Are they non-committal at this point? Do you know?
We have no ground
Contact?
with them right now or contact.
Adina?
Well, one other thing also is that they were given grant money in 2015, I think. Then the NDP government came in and took most of it back. So they're kind of unsure, at least with Newell Housing, where we stand as far as what money we have from the government to build a new project. And also, as far as the seniors home goes, we can't really decide or make a plan until the Alberta Health decides what they're going to do with the hospital. So we're kind of stuck until that's decided.
We are going to go ahead with a feasibility study, so that gives us a little more information, and is it worthwhile pursuing? So that's in the works with Newell Housing Foundation.
Okay. Thank you. Kelly?
Can I ask, when was the last feasibility study done? Because this studies can cost a lot of money, and I know it's been done.
2011.
Oh. So then another question is there an appetite for Newell Foundation to go ahead? Like what is the hold up? Do we know? No? Okay. Okay.
Okay. That meeting is on the 21st. We probably need to put some information together before that, and then we can make a decision informally about how and who attends that. And because it's virtual, I suppose any number of us could be involved if we want to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's virtual, but I was just listening to Dan's comment about, people, if everyone's not needed, then maybe we shouldn't all be part of it, because that could slow it down.
Yeah.
I have no knowledge, so I would be perfectly fine not attending because I have nothing to add.
Great. Okay. Greg?
I think one other thing that we need to talk about, and the fire chief out in Tilley, I believe Patrick Fabian, I think he's the fire chief, correct? Now he's been in communication with me quite a bit in regards to the EMS and the ambulances, and he says this is a province-wide problem. And I specifically asked him if our county and our area has a problem. He says it's throughout the province. So what they're finding is that ambulances are having to travel upwards of 100 kilometers plus for emergency calls from different areas of from one area to the next, where there is supposed to be staff on hand. But this is an ongoing kind of elephant in the room with AHS, and I think that should really be brought up to them as one of the things. Yeah.
That's an issue across the province and one for us too, so that certainly should be raised, yeah. Okay, Amanda, go ahead.
It also really hits home when you read the EMS 10-point plan. It really spells it out quite well in there, so I really urge everybody to read that.
With reference to the feasibility study that was done in 2011, that one was pretty positive with regard to the feasibility of the project. And following that, I know that AHS was very supportive of moving forward, and it was close, but then some politics probably got in the way, and it got somehow put on the back burner. But I will have a conversation too with Ron Wixon with regard to where some of that's at. So. And then we'll set a strategy maybe together with staff and others getting closer to the 21st. Is that okay? Okay. I think we're at the end of our formal agenda other than a motion to go in camera. Neil? All in favor that we go in camera, please indicate. That's carried.